Hey guys, this is God of Politics, and welcome back to a brand new video, and we are at 321 subscribers on this channel. Can we get to 500 subscribers by election day? That is the big goal that we have for this channel. Also, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can get to that goal. Also, join the Discord if you want to chat to me or if you want to be involved in a political community. And check out the website. The website is where I update my election predictions and my poll analysis daily. But speaking of the polls, I will be talking about the polls in this video. And can the polls be trusted? Should we be looking at the polls and saying, we are basing our predictions, basing our analysis off of what the polls say? Because infamously in 2016, the polls were quite off in many key states, like Wisconsin, for example. If we want to look at the 2016 results in these certain, very important key states, and we just go into the 2016 presidential results, and we go to the RCP electoral map here, and we look at individual states, we can see that the polls were certainly off in many important states. One of those states was the state of Wisconsin. In the state of Wisconsin, Hillary Clinton was leading in the polls by 6.5 percentage points. Donald Trump ended up winning the state by 0.7 percentage points. In the state of Michigan, in the polls, Hillary Clinton was winning by 3.4 percentage points. Donald Trump ended up winning by 0.3 percentage points. So that is also outside of the margin of error. In the state of Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton was winning by 1.9 percentage points, and Donald Trump obviously ended up winning by 0.7 percentage points. And, sure, the polls were off there. They were also off in Ohio and Iowa. But then we look at states like Florida, for example. In the state of Florida, the polls had Donald Trump winning by 0.2 percentage points. He ended up winning by 1.2 percentage points. I would consider that to be accurate. Another big swing state for this election is the state of Arizona. Now, the state of Arizona had Donald Trump winning by 4 points. He ended up winning by 3.5. That is, virtually right on the money. And then we look at some states like Texas, for example, that actually overestimated overestimated Donald Trump and underestimated Hillary Clinton. The Texas polls showed Donald Trump winning by 12 percentage points, and Donald Trump ended up winning by 9 percentage points. So we have, some examples. Nevada is another example where the polls had Trump winning by 0.8%. They ended up having Hillary Clinton winning by 2.4%. So just analyzing that, the Rust Belt generally overestimates Democrats in 2016. The Sun Belt generally is more correct or underestimated Democrats in 2016. But how did it, affect other elections? If we want to look at elections in the past, and we go back to elections such as 2004. Well, in 2004, it had Bush winning by 1.5. He ended up winning by 2.4. So, those results were right, as it usually is for the national average. In 2008, the polls had Obama winning by 7.6 percentage points. He ended up winning by 7.3 percentage points. So, again, that was also right on the money. Obama getting a late lead in the election, and he ended up winning with that late lead. And it was pretty much on the money in terms of the actual margins too. So it was right in 2004. It was right in 2008. If you look at 2012 actually underestimated Barack Obama. The poll average had Obama winning by 0.7 percentage points, and Barack Obama ended up winning by 3.9 percentage points. Now, why is that? Well, we see that there's certain polls in the RCP average that have historically overestimated Republicans. A poll like Rasmussen, for example. Rasmussen in 2012 obviously had Mitt Romney up 1 point. In 2016, if we look at the 2016 results and we go to the national polls, you would see that Rasmussen predicted Hillary Clinton would win by 2, and she did. In 2018, Rasmussen predicted that Republicans would win the popular vote by 1 percentage point, and they ended up losing it by 9. So Rasmussen does not have a good track record. And, if we want to look at this year's polls, they have Trump at around 50% approval rating. They have him at 40% approval with black voters. They have him at 30% approval with the Democrat voters. And, we look, they have Biden ahead in 4 in Ohio, ahead 9 in Michigan, ahead 8 in Wisconsin, ahead 8 in Pennsylvania, too. So I would not listen to polls like Rasmussen, for example. They do not seem to be good polls, and that is part of the reason why the polls underestimated Obama in 2012. Now, there's the argument of the shy Trump voter, but what about the shy Trump voter or the shy Republican voter in 2012? Well, it overestimated Mitt Romney in 2012, so that wouldn't have been an explanation for the polls being wrong then. And in 2016, it clearly wasn't because, the polls underestimated Hillary Clinton in Nevada and Texas, and they also did it in the state of Colorado. Colorado is another example, another one of these Sun Belt or more southern states that overestimated Donald Trump. Had Hillary Clinton winning by 2.9, she ended up winning by 4.9. So we see many of these examples where the polling errors go both ways. If you look at 2018, for example, the polls in Florida had Bill Nelson winning by 2.4 percentage points, and he ended up losing by 0.2 percentage points. So the polls were slightly off in that state. And, sure, that underestimated Republicans. But then we look at a state like Arizona, where it had Martha McSally winning by 1 percentage point, and she lost by 2.3 percentage points. So we see similar trends here, is that the polls can underestimate either party on both sides. We look at Michigan. Michigan polls in 2018 were, pretty accurate, to be honest. We had certain polls that showed it going by more. We have polls like Gravis, for example, another example of a poll that is not very good, showing Debbie Stabenow winning by more than she did. But generally, we didn't have that many polls in the state that were included in the average here. But, Debbie Stabenow did win, and the polls were generally more accurate. But then if we look at 2012, for example, and we look at the polls in 2012, well, the polls in 2012 underestimated Democrats in some swing states as well. We look at the state of Michigan, for example. Now, Michigan's one of those states that Obama won easily in 2008, and then the RCP average in 2012 had him winning by 4. He ended up winning by 9.5 percentage points. That's a bigger error than in 2016, but this time it was in favor of the Democratic candidate, Barack Obama. In 2016, it was in favor of Donald Trump. So these polling errors can happen either way. If we look at the generic ballot, for example, you will see how Rasmussen and Republicans winning by 1, but in 2018, the polls were generally more accurate. And so the message of this is that the national polls are generally accurate. They were right in 2004, they were right in 2008, they would have been right in 2012 if it weren't for Rasmussen. They were right in 2016 if you actually look at it. They were right in 2018 and expect them to be right in 2020. Now, that does not mean you can't scrutinize polls, that does not mean you cannot criticize polls, and that means doesn't mean you can't throw out polls overall. If you look at the 2020 polls, for example, you see Biden has pretty healthy leads. He has a lead in Wisconsin just as large as Hillary Clinton's in 2016. He has a lead in states like Michigan. He has a lead in states like Pennsylvania. He even has a lead in states like Ohio, which Hillary Clinton didn't have. He has a lead in many of these swing states. Arizona, Trump-led. North Carolina, Trump-led. Florida, Trump-led. If we also look, Ohio, Trump-led. Georgia was not this close. Iowa was not this close. Nevada was more in favor of Biden this time. Texas is more in favor of Biden this time. So generally, Biden is doing better in the polls. And if you assume that you're going to have the same polling errors as you had in 2016, and you translate those to 2020, well, Joe Biden would still win the election regardless. So I see a lot of people commenting, not just on my channel, but on Twitter, on other people's channels, that you can't trust the polls completely and that you should just throw them out. Well, a lot of the people saying that are people that, are obviously just, pretty biasly favoring the Republican candidate and Donald Trump. And they see these polls saying that Donald Trump is going to lose, and they just throw them out completely. Well, on my website, I do weight these polls to show that Joe Biden's lead, sure, it's a little less than what the polls are showing, but he still has a healthy lead, and you should expect the polls to be right. And, polls have margin of errors for a reason. They have undecided voters for a reason. The polls aren't necessarily going to be accurate the entire time. They are a snapshot in time from when the poll was conducted, and you have to really analyze these polls. You look in 2016, had these media sites, The Economist, Huffington Post, CNN, that gave Hillary Clinton, great chances to win, 98% chances. But then you look at the polls, they only showed a 272 to 266 victory for Clinton. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the analysis of the polls were wrong. The polls themselves were not necessarily wrong. And I admit, the polls in Wisconsin were wrong, the polls in Michigan were wrong, though that is completely true. But that does not mean you should just completely throw out all of these polls. You have to look at the polls that are generally more accurate and should be trusted. And I can just go through these polls right now. If we look at the RCP average, we have first Fox News. Fox News is a decent pollster. They've, no pollster is ever going to get every single election right, and they're not going to get every single margin right. Fox News has seemingly underestimated both sides in certain cases. Now, Biden +5 seems a little bit more in favor of Donald Trump than most other pollsters, but that is what their poll shows, and they do have pretty reputable polls. They also showed Biden +9 in Arizona, +8 in Wisconsin, so you have to take many of those things into account too. The Economist YouGov poll. Now, this has consistently had Biden +9 or 10 for a while, but then you look individually at these polls. Now, on my website, as I pointed out, I do weight these polls to show the accurate result. Many of these polls show that Trump is winning independents by more than what he won them in 2016, yet it still shows Biden with a huge lead. Now, this is where a lot of the people criticizing polls ties into actual logic. Now, these polls do poll too many Democratic voters, and when you weight them, sure, it brings down Biden's lead, but my average on the website that I have still has Biden up by around 6 percentage points, so it does not bring it down by too much. The Hill-Harris-X, not a great pollster, but they're all right. Monmouth is a pretty good pollster. Reuters Ipsos is not a good pollster. As I pointed out before, Rasmussen is not a good pollster. USC Dornstein is not very good either. CNBC Change Research is a Democrat internal. They're not that great. Harvard-Harris is all right. IBD, TIPP is all right. CNN is not a very good pollster as well. Their numbers seem to bounce around a lot. So the general gist of this is that polls are all right. You're going to have polls that are good, such as Harvard-Harris, such as Monmouth, and you're going to have polls that are bad, such as Rasmussen, such as Reuters. And so you kind of have to just, chuck these in the average. And when they're all thrown in the average, they don't show Biden +12, and they don't show Biden +2. It shows Biden +7.5. And, there's reasons Biden's up more in the popular vote. Not a lot of it is, a lot of it isn't due to necessarily the fact that Biden's doing well in swing states. It's due to his gains in bigger states like California and New York that he's going to help in the popular vote, but not necessarily electorally. That is why this, huge lead seems hard to believe, but that is what the lead shows in terms of the popular vote. But when you look at the state polls, Biden, as I pointed out, is winning big in Wisconsin. He's winning big in Michigan and Pennsylvania. He's even winning in Florida and Arizona and Nevada, and he's even getting a poll lead in North Carolina and even Ohio. In all, that's a crazy state for Biden to lead in, but he is leading in the state of Ohio. So the point I want to leave you with is that, don't listen to people who say, listen to all the pollsters, put your average, your predictions based entirely off the polls. Those are not the only things you should base the results off of and your predictions off of. That's not what I do. That's not what people should be doing. But that does not mean that you should go out there and say that you can never trust the polls, because the polls generally are accurate. National polls are accurate, and certain state polls are quite accurate too. If Joe Biden is winning by 7 points in Wisconsin come election day, don't bet that Donald Trump is going to win the state, because he probably won't win the state. If you think that the race is going to tighten, sure, predict Donald Trump will win Wisconsin. But you cannot, in good conscience, predict that you're going to have the exact same polling errors as 2016 that are going to be just as drastic and going to give Donald Trump just as, if not more, a surprising victory as 2016. So again, listen to some polls, but not all polls, because they can give you good insight in the race, a snapshot of the race, a snapshot in time, but they are not everything. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. Sorry, I don't have my microphone today, so my voice might sound a little off, but I will have it back tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Also, check out my website. I mentioned it many times in this video. It is quite important for you to check that out, because it shows a real average that isn't necessarily, it factors in many of these polling errors, but also showing it in a more fair way and unbiased way. So I hope you check that out. That is linked down in the description. Also join the Discord. That is also linked down in the description. Help get me to 500 subscribers by election day. We are on the way there, and I am confident that we can do that. So again, thank you all for watching this video, guys, and I will see you guys later.